My roommate and I experienced a sort of fight-flight moment. We basically lived in the woods during quarantine. We'd spend the days there storm or shine, drinking beers, picking up trash, swimming. Just goofing around. We also started doing something that sounds odd to say out loud but at the time kept us sane. We'd get to the woods, strip off our socks and shoes, and hike in silence to this little lagoon we'd lay out at. It was insanely meditative and I absolutely loved just barefoot wandering. It felt so satisfying in this primal sort of way anyway. The more we roamed like that, the more in tune we got with the woods around us. Without the chatter between us and the careless stomping of booted feet, we'd become part of the woods in this weird way. Probably helped that I was stoned out of my gourd half the time. We'd surprise people pretty often without meaning to, passing within a couple feet before they noticed us. It was like our guts started calling the shots. We could feel storms brewing. All the creatures seemed to stop minding us when we walked like that. So whenever the woods went silent, we knew something was coming. It was one of those days, with thick skies and kinda electric air. It had been stormy for a few days and the woods were pretty empty. We'd only seen maybe 2 other souls all day. Darkness had started to creep in, quicker than usual. We were headed out of the woods, barefoot and knocking back the dregs of some warm, Shasterous-type air, chatting a bit about nothing. I remember we were coming up this hill and all of a sudden it was like I'd swallowed a snowball. I looked up at her and she was frozen mid-laugh. Something was wrong. The woods were off. We were surrounded by murky shadows and dead kin silence, heavy silence, tense silence. Then we heard it. It was this metallic sort of sound, a kind of clanging we couldn't really make out, metal striking stone, over and over, a bit further down the trail, squarely in between us and the way out. We stood like statues, tucked behind some trees, just listening, a shovel, someone digging. We crept closer. I remember how the sound made my palms itch. My friend's face was flushed rose red. I told myself I was being stupid. In fact, I had in my backpack a little spade we used to plant flowers and dig up rocks and such. Who was I to judge this person? But then again, that was just a little garden spade, and as we got closer it became clear that this person had a full-on shovel and was digging in the middle of the trail. I kept trying to explain it to myself. This person was just digging. Sure, it was dusk and a lightning storm was hastening our way, but we all cope with quarantine differently, and sure, it's odd to carry a big shovel this deep into the woods, but maybe they're burying a beloved pet. And sure, it makes no sense that they'd bury their pet in the middle of the trail, but maybe they're digging a bike jump, and they don't have a bike, but on like that. My mind churning out reasons, and still, the knots in my gut wouldn't loosen. We were almost on him now. I think it was a him, though they were wearing a hat, scarf, and heavy clothes, all black, bit odd for summer, but again, he might be in mourning for his sweet Fido, who had loved that spot in the middle of the narrow dirt trail. With every step, my stomach hurt more. We were both shining in sweat. The sound of metal striking earth and stone seemed deafening. It's a primal sort of fear, isn't it? Rooted deep in our guts. Completely deaf to every excuse I was handing it. We were just waltzing along 1 minute, cracking jokes, slugging beer, and suddenly it was like every neuron was firing, every muscle tight enough to snap. My mind was racing. I was taking stock of everything, to girls, barefoot, in swimsuits and overalls, to empty beer cans. I had a bag of found trash and a backpack of random Shaster's tea. My friend was holding our bucket of rocks, though we picked skinny flat stones for skipping, not self-defense. I had a can of pepper spray buried somewhere in my bag, but, much to my mother's dismay I'd bet, couldn't easily access it. And that stupid kin spade. It feels so insane looking back. I've never been in a fight. I never raise my voice. I spend most of my days talking to toddlers about emotional regulation. And yet, here I suddenly was. tallying up what I had on hand that could be used as a weapon against a total stranger, but all those excuses I'd fashioned for him had fallen away and only one thought stuck. Maybe this gut feeling is wrong. Maybe he's doing any one of a million things. Maybe he'd feel awkward or embarrassed, seeing us bolt away, but what if it's right? What is the cost if it's right? If we walk past and he swings the shovel, what then? What would the excuses cost us? Something shifted. I didn't know what. It felt like such a high-voltage situation. A single spark in a gas-choked room. My friend went white, said the first words we'd exchanged the whole time. "Don't look at him. Run." We ran, crashed down into the woods off the trail, close to the water. We could jump in if he chased us. We sprinted, leaping over boulders, ducking under trees. Thorns and stones sticking into bare soles. I didn't feel them, didn't notice the blood on my feet. Till we broke out of the tree line. Later, we tried to piece it together, tried to understand what had happened. We were cucumber cool ordinarily, and definitely felt a sense of invincibility sneaking round the woods. It wasn't till we were safe home, bandaging our feet, that we figured it out. As far as we ever would. The spark had been silence. He had stopped shoveling and, safe at home, I admitted that I'd looked back. Just a glance, just for a split second. He had stopped shoveling and started walking towards us. Follow for more stories.